Welcome to another process video with the Dragon Story. These videos, again, this series of videos is when I just play some of my process videos and just kind of talk about some of my thoughts and methodology behind this. So, for example, like this dragon, this was one where I did an early sketch just on paper, quite early on, just thinking through this whole project. And so I ended up scanning it in, bringing it into Procreate on my iPad Pro, and then just this kind of restarted drawing the process. Because one of the things that I was hoping to accomplish with this whole project is capturing different personalities within dragons. Since dragons can speak and talk and have personalities, I wanted to see if I can capture some of that in their physical attributes. And so I had this idea for like this old dragon, like just kind of this old, kind of overweight, just kind of, I don't know, well, not necessarily grumpy, but just kind of this concept for an older style dragon. Because the previous old dragon that I'd drawn, I didn't think quite looked old enough. I wanted to try another version of a old overweight dragon, and so that's kind of what inspired this drawing. I mean, in the end, I think I still didn't quite capture it, but that was the whole goal with this drawing. And actually, this is an interesting part, because if you saw where I was mapping out the legs, I was still figuring out a lot of my anatomy and the dragon structures. And so here was one, like if you go back and look at that, where I started drawing sort of that canine leg or that mammal leg, and I ended up switching back to a more reptilian leg, kind of like a large lizard. And so those are little interesting things that you can pick up in the watching these process videos. The other thing is, like, now, like, we hit a section where it doesn't look like I'm really doing anything, but if we like look in really close, this was one drawing where I got really caught up in a lot of the details. I was like zoomed in super close, just drawing like every single scale, and it was taking forever. So I think this was like the third drawing that I did, but it was not the third drawing that I finished, because I got really caught up in these tiny details. I mean, I still get caught up in the details of my drawings, but I found far more efficient ways to do it. Plus, with this drawing, I was still figuring out my process or my technique, how I wanted to draw. And so I was still testing out a lot of things. I was still using like like a pencil brush. I figured pencil would be the best. But with the pencil brush, you get a lot of fine lines, but it was hard to get a lot of value or shading. I mean, and I discovered that later on. I'll cover that once I get to some of those drawings. But with the pencil brush, I was just going in there, putting tons and tons of little tiny strokes here and there. And so it just took forever. I mean, I think this is the longest process video I have. I mean, no, I take that back. I've done some more complex ones in the future. But in contrast, I think this one's like 12 minutes and others are much faster. And so some of the physical attributes, when I was drawing this, I'm thinking he's older, he's going to have kind of loose skin, just sort of some fatty buildups in certain areas, leaning a lot towards the lizard design. Where he's kind of like on his belly, all fours, he can kind of crawl along. This was the other thought was, with age comes a lot of overgrowth in the horns and overgrowth in the scales, and so I try to make it look like, it had these really old or overgrown or grown with age scales everywhere. And that's a detail I feel like sometimes I kind of skip over, or like I get really in the mode of creating dragons at a certain age, and so I kind of stick to, a younger or middle-aged dragon. But just watching this is a good reminder to remember to go back and make sure the scales kind of match the personality and the age of the dragon. So, and there's still a lot of things that I noticed that I'm not doing completely right. And a lot of that has to do with my full process wasn't fully designed. You know, I just started drawing versus really getting a solid structure mapped out, or the solid line work. I mean, as you can see, the dragon face is getting tons and tons of detail, but I'm not sure if I got the actual anatomy and structure just right on this one. You can see me going back over and over and over again on the face. And it's okay. Like, not knowing how to do things is perfectly fine. Because I learned a lot from this. Like I said, probably what I've learned the most is don't spend so much time on details that you won't see. If you zoom in really close, yeah, you might see some of these fine details. I'm not sure if this process video captures how detailed it was, but when you zoom out, it's not the same. I kind of designed the hands, the fingers, think of like a lizard design, but gave him kind of these big, gnarly forearms. Not necessarily Popeye muscles, but just like, it's gained some weight in his arms. And this was a drawing where I had fun just kind of exploring some of the scale structure and scale design. But you can see it's taking forever, giving attention to every single little scale. So one of the other things that I've learned is when I layer my drawings, that helps speed things up. Like if you watch some of my other how-to videos, you'll see that I put a layer of shadow down where I map out the shading first, and then I build texture and details on top of that, and that really helps speed up the process. Like with this drawing, I was going in there and just putting tons of brush strokes just to try and create the value without losing texture or making it look kind of rough and choppy. This was a drawing where I also hadn't completely figured out what I wanted my wing structure to be like. I had done some earlier tests and sketches, and I was convinced I wanted the wing behind the front legs, just because then if the wings are kind of in a central point, that would lift the dragon when it tries to fly. But I'm still kind of figuring out how the anatomy of the wing attaches to like the back, the rib cage. And so you can see a little bit of that. I spent some time trying to, capture the loose skin around it. And, it's okay, I guess. It doesn't bother me too much, but I still look at this and think the anatomy's off. But what I did like was I knew wings needed to be like, so in my world, the wings were like the arms. So it's like it's a creature with arms and 4 legs. And so I try and base the wings off of like an arm structure. So you can kind of see the similar anatomy, of like the bicep and tricep and forearm that comes down into the thumb. Plus, since this dragon was older, a little bit thicker, it probably wasn't doing a lot of flying, so I kind of figured it walked around and it used its wings as kind of extra appendages. So I kind of had fun exploring that. I mean, and I really liked how, the wing hand kind of turned out. I think I could have done better connecting the rest of it, because it's kind of a tiny wing if we look at the proportion. But once again, I was figuring things out. I was testing things out. Oh yeah, see there, I kind of increased the size of the wing. Basically trying to figure out how the fingers of the wing would fold up or bend in. You can also see that I kind of took some inspiration from like iguanas and other lizards. It kind of looks like a tuatara honestly, like a Tuatara dragon. But that might be fun to go back and try some specific inspiration. So then I think I wanted to keep drawing or keep continuing this dragon. I mean, looking back at this now, I feel like his leg's still too small, and it's really kind of extend. But anyway, we do these drawings. It's okay to look back. Sorry, I always get distracted looking at the things that I need to fix, but I kind of imagine like the tail of this dragon, since he's kind of a thicker dragon, would just kind of be large, kind of thick, kind of plump. So it kind of matches the personality. I figure there's like there's even different styles of tails in the dragon world. Is it long, like, is it slithery? Does it like drag on the ground, or is it one that is more designed more for balance, that stays lifted up off the ground? And so those are always questions to ask. Man, I look back at some of the scales along the spine, and there are a lot of them. I think at this point I was trying to speed things up a little bit, trying to figure out a process. Oh, and then in the end, I felt like he just looked too gray. And so I went back and created a new layer where I just ended up shading and trying to enhance some of the shadows. So, I mean, that was kind of one moment that taught me to, pay attention to the values of my drawings. Otherwise, if I get too caught up in the details, it stays, it'll be gray or flat. And so you want to pay attention to the values just as much. So, but anyway, I had fun drawing this dragon. It took a long time. I learned a lot from it. There's things I like about it, but obviously I've learned so much more from here. But yeah. So thanks for watching, and be sure to check out some of my other process videos and how-to videos. Thanks.